Imagine this. It's the dead of night in the Atlantic, 1943. A German U-boat slips beneath the waves, its crew silent, tense. The captain gives the order to surface for a night attack. But as the hatch opens, the men don't see enemy ships. They see something else. Faces in the water. Pale, accusing eyes staring up from the depths. Screams that aren't from drowning sailors, but from their own consciences. Stories like these circulated among Kriegsmarine crews. Moral nightmares that haunted them long after the war ended. Crews who sent torpedoes into convoys, who watched merchant ships burn, who questioned what they'd become in the name of orders. But what if those nightmares didn't end with the armistice? What if echoes of guilt, duty, and unresolved sin followed men across oceans and decades, into the very barracks where today's soldiers sleep? Welcome to Wartime Stories. Tonight we turn from the high seas to solid ground, specifically the historic grounds of Fort Leavenworth, Kansas. Established in 1827 as one of the oldest active Army posts west of the Mississippi, Leavenworth has seen frontier wars, Civil War prisoners, world wars, and today serves as home to the U.S. Army Command and General Staff College, training future leaders. But it also houses the United States Disciplinary Barracks, the DoD's only maximum security prison. Executions, long-term confinement, and the weight of military justice have left an indelible mark. In modern times, post-2000, soldiers, MPs, corrections officers, and families living on post-report phenomena that defy explanation. Phantom footsteps in empty corridors, voices issuing orders from darkened rooms, cold spots in locked cells, and apparitions of men in old uniforms who seem to stand watch or seek judgment. These aren't dusty legends from the 1800s. These are accounts from the 2010s and 2020s. Men and women in uniform today who swear what they experienced was real. Men who question whether the barracks hold more than memories. Perhaps souls still serving eternal sentences. Tonight, we bring you 7 first-hand testimonies from those who've walked these haunted halls. Stay with us, if you dare turn out the lights. Chapter 1. The Pacing Sentinel. Our first account comes from a corrections specialist who served at the United States Disciplinary Barracks between 2017 and 2019. For career protection reasons, he asked us to refer to him only as Marcus. This is his story, in his own words. I recorded during a private interview in late 2022. Marcus, first person, calm delivery, with a slow building tension. I worked midnights on the Special Housing Unit, SHU. Segregation. Single cells, steel doors, food slots, constant fluorescent light that never really turns off, just dims. You get used to the smell, bleach, sweat, metal. You get used to the quiet that isn't quiet. Every pipe click, every vent sigh sounds like someone moving. Around February 2018, I started hearing pacing. Not from inside the occupied cells. The rhythm was outside my patrol route, coming from the old North Corridor. That wing was abandoned after the new facility opened in 2002. They welded the access door shut, left it for storage and spare parts. No heat, no power, no cameras. First time it happened was about 0315. Steady cadence. Heel-toe or heel-toe, like someone walking post on a 12-foot line, turning sharply at each end. I stopped. Listened. It kept going, maybe 30 paces each way. I keyed the radio. Control, SHU. Movement in the old north wing. Sounds like boots on concrete. Cameras show nothing. You want backup? No? I'll check. I grabbed the maglite and the keyring for the outer gate. The padlock was still in place, chain rattling in the draught. I shined the light through the bars. Dust motes drifted. Empty hallway. The pacing stopped the second the beam hit the far wall, then started again the moment I lowered it. I stood there maybe 2 minutes. Nothing visual, just the boots. Left, right, about face, left, right. Then pressure, not wind, actual weight on my left shoulder, like a hand clamping down, fingers digging in. I spun, empty air. But my shoulder burned cold. When I got back to the light and pulled my shirt aside, there were 5 perfect bruises in a handprint pattern. Next night, same time, same pacing. This time I brought a voice recorder. I held it up to the bars and let it run. When I played it back in the break room, buried under the static, you could just make out a voice. Low, clipped, old-school military. Post and walk. Post and walk, all secure. Then a short, bitter laugh. The kind a man makes when he knows the joke's on him. I started asking questions off the record. One of the old-timers, a retired master sergeant who'd worked the DB since the late 80s, told me about Tower 8. Back in the 1950s, a sergeant named Ellis walked that tower during executions. He supervised the hangings, military-style, long drop. After the 11th one, he went into the tower alone, put a service pistol under his chin, and pulled. No note, just a man who couldn't carry the weight any more. They sealed Tower 8 after that. But the story was that Ellis never really left. He still walks his post, checking the line, waiting for relief that never comes. I requested a permanent day shift after the 3rd week. They approved it. I thought distance would help. It didn't. Even after I PCS'd to Fort Campbell in 2019, I'd wake up at 03:15 on the dot. I'd hear it outside the window, heel-toe, on the sidewalk, when there was no one there. Once I even felt the hand again. Same cold grip, same 5 bruises the next morning. I don't know if it's punishment. I don't know if it's just loneliness. All I know is he's still out there, walking that line, but saying the same thing every night. Post secure, and nobody ever relieves him. Marcus has since left active duty. He says the pacing has finally stopped, but he still wakes at 03:15 some nights, just to listen, just in case. What kind of orders keep a soul on post for 70 years? And what happens when the living finally walk away, but the dead refuse to stand down? Chapter 2. The Whispered Court-Martial. Our second account comes from Specialist Elena Torres, who was assigned to Fort Leavenworth in 2021 while attending the Warrior Leader course. She lived in one of the renovated enlisted barracks just outside the perimeter of the old disciplinary barracks grounds. This is her testimony, recorded during a follow-up interview in 2023 after she had already separated from service. Specialist Torres. First person, at voice steady but with occasional pauses, as though choosing words carefully. I was in Building 214, second floor, room 212, standard 2-person room. Wall lockers, bunk beds, cinder block walls painted that institutional beige. Nothing fancy, but it was quiet compared to basic training barracks. My roommate was on CQ most nights, so I usually had the place to myself after lights out. It started small. Around 02:15, I'd wake up needing the latrine. Every time I stepped into the hallway, I could hear low voices coming from the day room at the far end. Whispers, formal, clipped, like a board or a panel in session. I figured at first it was guys on the floor below watching a true crime documentary too loud, or maybe someone on speakerphone with family back home. But the cadence was wrong. No emotion, just procedure. The accused will rise. Specification 1. Violation of Article 92, dereliction of duty. How say you? Guilty. Always the same phrasing, same order. Never any shouting, never any pleas. Just the slow machinery of judgment. After about a week, I started recording it on my phone. I'd prop the door open a crack, hit record, then go back to bed. The first playback was mostly hallway noise, air handler, distant toilet flush, but underneath it, clear as anything. Charge. Murder in violation of Article 118. The court finds the accused guilty. Sentence, to be hanged by the neck until dead. Then a gavel. Single sharp crack. Then silence. I showed the clip to my roommate the next morning. She listened twice, face going pale. She said her uncle had done 3 years in the DB back in the 90s for aggravated assault. He told her stories about midnight courts, that sometimes, long after lights out, you could hear the old trials being replayed in the empty cell blocks. Not loud enough for the guards to catch on cameras or logs, but loud enough that inmates in solitary would bang on doors begging someone to make it stop. I laughed it off at first. I'm not superstitious. But the next few nights the volume crept up. Not louder exactly, closer. Like the voices had moved from the day room into the stairwell. Then into the hallway right outside my door. One Tuesday, 02:30, I woke to the wall locker door standing wide open. My ACU top was on the floor, sleeves crossed like wrists in restraints. The room was maybe 68 degrees, but the mirror above the sink was fogged up like someone had just taken a hot shower. Scrawled in the condensation, in perfect block letters, "Not guilty." I wiped it away fast. My hand shook. I didn't sleep the rest of the night. I went to the chaplain the next day, not the brigade chaplain, the quiet one who works out of the old post chapel. I played him the recording. He listened without expression, then said something I'll never forget. Some sentences don't end when the trapdoor drops. Some men keep appealing long after the rope is cut. He gave me a small bundle of sage and told me to smudge the room, open the windows, walk the perimeter, say a prayer if I knew one. I did it that weekend. The voices stopped. Completely. For almost 10 days, I slept through the night. Then it came back. Not whispers anymore. Clear sentences. Same trial, same verdict. But now the voice asking, "How say you?" sounded tired. Resigned. The gavel hit 3 times instead of once. And every time it hit, the lights in my room flickered. Just a half-second brownout. The last night I stayed in that room, I woke to my name being called. Not loud, just firm. Like a first sergeant reading from the charge sheet. Torres. Present. No, I hadn't answered. The voice had answered for me. I moved out the next morning, packed everything in 40 minutes, signed into a temporary room on the other side of post. The voices didn't follow me there. But sometimes, when everything is dead quiet, especially when I'm alone in a hotel room on TDY, I still hear the gavel. Just once, sharp, final. I don't know who was on trial. I don't know if they ever got the verdict they wanted. All I know is the court never adjourned. Do the dead get to appeal forever? Or are some of us just stuck sitting on the jury, whether we signed up for it or not? Specialist Torres E.T. sold in 2022 and now lives off-post in Kansas City. She says she no longer keeps voice memos on her phone. She still wakes at 2:15 some nights, just to listen, just to make sure the hallway outside her door is empty. What verdict echoes through empty barracks at 3 a.m.? And who is still waiting for the gavel to fall one last time? Chapter 3. The Cold Cell. Our third account comes from Master Sergeant Harlan Brooks, U.S. Army retired, who served as a corrections transport NCO at Fort Leavenworth from 2013 to 2017. This testimony was shared during a Veterans Support Group meeting in 2024, where he spoke publicly for the first time about the incident that ended his time at the disciplinary barracks. MMSG Brooks, retired. First person, gravelly voice, deliberate pacing, occasional long pauses. I ran inmate transport details, picking up prisoners from joint regional correctional facilities, federal holding centres, sometimes even overseas returnees. Long drives in the corrections van, steel cage in back, bench seats, no windows except the small armoured slits. Winter runs were the worst. Heater barely kept the cab warm, and the back compartment turned into an icebox if you didn't keep the vents open. This was January 2015, blizzard warning in effect. We were bringing in a new arrival from Leavenworth County Jail. Routine handoff. I had a young private first-class riding shotgun, first time on transport. Kid was nervous, kept checking the side mirror like he expected someone to tail us. We pulled up to the old intake gate just after 2200. That gate's still used for legacy processing, paperwork, initial strip search, health screening, before they move the inmate into the main facility. The gatehouse is heated, but the sally port and the holding cells attached to it are uninsulated concrete. Cold seeps in no matter what. While the jail escort was signing over the prisoner, the private went to check the back of the van. Standard procedure, make sure the cage door was secure. He came back pale, breathing fast. "Sarge, there's someone in the back cell." I thought he was messing with me. I grabbed my flashlight and walked around to the rear doors. Opened them. Empty. Just the bench, the restraint rings bolted to the floor, and the small isolation cell at the very back. Maybe 4 by 6. Solid steel door with a slot. Nothing. No one. But the temperature inside the van had dropped hard. I mean hard. My breath fogged the second I stepped up. Frost was forming on the bars of the inner cell, thin, crystalline, the kind you only see when it's well below freezing. Except the cab heater was running full blast, and the outside temperature was maybe 15 degrees. No way it should have been that cold inside a closed vehicle. Then the scratching started. Slow, deliberate. Fingernails, or something like fingernails, dragging down the inside of the steel door. Not frantic, methodical. Like someone testing every inch, looking for a weak spot. Scratch, pause, scratch, pause. 5 seconds each way. The private backed up so fast he almost tripped. Sarge, that's him. That's gotta be him. I knew the story he was talking about. Back in 2003, an inmate in solitary SHU Cell 47 lost it. Severe depression, no visitors, no mail. Guards found him the next morning with both eyes gouged out, fingernails broken and bloody from clawing at the door, trying to get out. He bled out before medical could respond. Official report called it suicide by self-mutilation. Unofficial talk said he kept whispering to someone in the cell with him right up until the end. I slammed the doors shut. The scratching stopped instantly. We finished the handoff, got the new inmate loaded, and rolled out onto the highway. The scratching started again 5 minutes later. Same rhythm, same pauses, all the way to the main processing building. 47 minutes of it. Never louder, never faster. Just persistent. Like whoever it was had all the time in the world. When we pulled into the secure bay and opened the back, the frost was still there, thick enough you could write your name in it. But the gouges, fresh gouges on the inside of the cell door. 4 sets of parallel lines, deep enough to catch a fingernail. Not there when we left the county jail. No tools, no inmate access, no explanation. I wrote it up as possible vandalism from previous transport, weak report, but it was all I had. The private never rode transport again. Requested reassignment the next duty day. I stayed on another 2 years. Never had the scratching come back in the van. But cold spots, those followed me. Walk into an empty admin office in January. Feel the air drop 20 degrees for no reason. Stand in the hallway outside SHU. Feel the same frostbite grip on the back of my neck. Even after I retired and moved to a house in Topeka, I'd wake up some nights and the bedroom would be freezing. Thermometer reading 48 degrees when the thermostat was set to 68. I keep telling myself it was just a bad night, bad weather, bad imagination. But I still check the locks on my own bedroom door before I go to sleep, every night, because sometimes I hear it again. Faint, slow, scratch, pause, scratch, pause, like someone's still trying to get out, or maybe trying to get in. Master Sergeant Brooks passed away in 2025. His family reports that in the last months of his life he kept a small digital recorder beside his bed. They never played the files. They didn't need to. They say he would wake at the same time every night, listen to the silence, and then quietly say, "Still there." What stays locked inside a cell after the prisoner is gone? And how long does the cold remember? Chapter 4. The Phantom Roll Call. Our fourth account comes from Drill Sergeant Miguel Ramirez, who was assigned to the Basic Combat Training Support Cadre at Fort Leavenworth in 2022 to 2023 while awaiting his next permanent change of station. He lived in the NCO barracks, adjacent to one of the training companies that occasionally uses the post for specialized leadership courses. This is his testimony, given during a recorded phone interview in early 2025. Drill Sergeant Ramirez, first person, voice firm, and clipped at first, gradually carrying more weight as he speaks. I was the senior drill sergeant for a warrior leader course platoon. Small group, mostly E4s and E5s, getting ready to pin sergeant. We ran everything by the book. 0530 first call. 0600 formation in the courtyard outside building 318. Our accountability, PT, Chow classes. Same rhythm every morning. The first time it happened was a Monday in October 2022. Cold front had rolled through, breath fogging, frost on the grass. I stepped out at 0555 to set the guidon, then called roll at 0600 sharp. "Here, Drill Sergeant," came the replies. Standard. Until I got to the bottom of the roster. Private First Class James Harlan. Silence. No answer. I looked down the line. 32 soldiers present, all eyes forward. No one missing. I marked him absent. Figured maybe admin error. Someone dropped from the course overnight, roster not updated. Happens. Next morning, same formation, same cold. I read the same roster. Private First Class James Harlan. From the rear rank, clear as day. Here, drill sergeant. Loud, confident, textbook response. But the rear rank was empty. Nobody there, no shadow, just the brick wall of the barracks and the sodium lights buzzing overhead. I stopped cold, looked at the platoon. They looked back at me. A couple of the older sergeants exchanged glances, but nobody said a word. I finished roll, moved to PT. Told myself it was acoustics. Someone's voice bouncing off the building, a late soldier answering from the stairwell. Rational explanation. Third morning, I was ready for it. 05:30, I had the platoon sergeant double-check the roster. No Harlan listed. No one by that name in the course. I even called the company training NCO, negative contact, 0600 formation. I read slower this time, eyes on the rear. Private First Class James Harlan. Here, drill sergeant. Same voice, same spot. Louder than before. A few soldiers flinched. One of the junior NCOs muttered, "What the hell?" I stepped forward, boots crunching frost. Who answered that call? No response. I walked the line, eyes locked on the empty space where the voice came from. Nothing. Just pavement and shadows. If someone is screwing around, they will be smoked until they puke. Identify yourself. Silence. Then footsteps. Not mine. Not anyone else's. Perfect parade rest cadence, marching away from the formation toward the far end of the courtyard, fading into the dark between buildings. I dismissed the platoon early, pulled the platoon sergeant aside. "Ramirez, you okay?" he asked. I told him what I heard. He didn't laugh. He just nodded. "Check the memorial wall behind the DFAC," he said. "You'll see." I went that afternoon. Small bronze plaque, one of many on the post's training memorial. One name jumped out. Private James Harlan B. Company. 1 to 34. INK. IA. August 14th, 2008. Training accident. Rappelling tower fall. He'd been a trainee at Leavenworth during a summer leadership rotation. Slipped on wet rope, fell 30 feet, didn't make it. Official line was equipment failure. Unofficial talk was he froze at the top, wouldn't let go until gravity won. After that, I started paying attention. Every morning, same time, same voice. "Here, drill sergeant." Never missed a roll call. Never appeared. Just answered. Present. Accounted for. I tried changing the formation spot, moved it 50 meters west. Voice followed. Tried indoor roll in the classroom. Voice came from the back corner, empty. Tried skipping his name. Nothing. No answer. But the next day he was back, waiting. One morning I answered him. Private Harlan. Status. Pause. Then soft but clear. Still waiting on accountability, a drill sergeant. That was the last time I heard him speak. After that, he just answered here like always. But the tone changed, less confident, more expectant, like he was waiting for me to say something else, to release him. I requested a room change, moved to the other side of post. The voice didn't follow. But I still wake up at 0550 every morning, even on leave. I still hear the courtyard gravel under boots that aren't there. And sometimes, when I'm shaving in the mirror, I catch myself whispering the roster under my breath, just to make sure I don't miss a name, because if I ever skip his name again, I think he might stop answering, and I don't know what happens to a soldier who finally gets marked absent after all these years. Drill Sergeant Ramirez left Fort Leavenworth in mid-2023. He now trains recruits at another installation. He still carries the old course roster in his wallet, folded, worn, with one name circled in red pen. What happens when a soldier never hears dismissed? How long do you stand in formation when the war is over? But the accountability never ends. Chapter 5. The Lady in the Mirror. Our fifth account comes from Laura Klein, spouse of Staff Sergeant Daniel Klein, who was stationed at Fort Leavenworth from 2020 to 2023. The Kleins lived in family housing on post. Quarters originally built in the 1930s, renovated in the early 2000s, but still carrying the original fixtures and layout. Laura shared this experience in a private support group call for military dependents in 2024 after her husband had deployed. Laura Klein, first person, voice soft but steady, with the measured calm of someone who has learned to speak about the unexplainable. My husband got orders for a 9-month rotation to the Middle East in early 2022. I stayed behind with our 2 kids, ages 5 and 7, in Quarters 14B, a 2-story duplex off Grant Avenue. Old brick, high ceilings, hardwood floors that creak when the heat kicks on. The bathroom was the only room we hadn't updated. Clawfoot tub, pedestal sink, and a big beveled mirror framed in the dark oak that went almost floor to ceiling. It had that old house feeling, slightly warped, silvering at the edges, the kind of mirror that makes you look a little older than you are. It started in March. I'd be brushing my teeth before bed, kids already asleep, house quiet, except for the furnace. I'd glance up and catch something behind me in the reflection. Not a shadow, a person. A woman standing in the doorway of the bathroom, looking straight at me. She wore what looked like an old nurse's uniform. Long white dress, apron, high collar, sleeves rolled to the elbows. There was dark staining on the apron, like blood that had dried and been washed half out. Her face was pale, eyes wide, but not afraid. More like she was waiting for instructions. The first time I spun around so fast, I knocked the toothbrush holder into the sink. Nothing there. Empty hallway. Door to the kids' room closed. I told myself it was exhaustion. Dan had only been gone a month. I was handling school drop-offs, bills, everything alone. Reflection tricks in old glass. That's all. But she came back. Same time of night, usually around 22:30. Always standing in the same spot, just inside the doorway. Never moved closer, never spoke. Just watched. Sometimes she'd tilt her head slightly, like she was listening to something I couldn't hear. Other times she'd lift one hand, palm out, like she was trying to signal stop or help. I started avoiding the upstairs bathroom after dark. Used the half bath downstairs. But one night the kids were both sick. Stomach bug, and I had to go up to check on them. I stepped into the bathroom to wash my hands. The mirror was fogged, even though no one had run hot water in hours. Through the condensation, I saw her again. Closer this time, right behind where I stood. Her hand was raised, fingers spread, almost touching the glass from the other side. Then the mirror cleared in one slow swipe, like someone had dragged a palm across it from inside. In the clean streak, written in perfect cursive, "Help them 2 words. No smudge, no drips, Just those words, hanging there until I wiped the whole thing dry with a towel. My hands were shaking so bad I dropped the towel twice. I started digging. The quarters were built in 1937 on the site of the old post hospital annex, torn down in the 1950s. During the Civil War and Indian Wars, Fort Leavenworth had a large field hospital. Nurses treated wounded soldiers, civilians, even some native prisoners. Many didn't make it. Cholera, gangrene, amputations without anesthesia. Records show dozens of deaths in that exact footprint. One nurse, Matilda Grayson, worked there from 1863 to 1865. She wrote letters home about the boys who keep calling for their mothers even after they're gone. She died of typhoid in 1866, still on duty, 28 years old. After that night, I started hearing the sounds. Not loud, soft crying. Babies, grown men, the kind of low, broken sobs that come after pain meds wear off. Sometimes a man's voice whispering, "Nurse, nurse," over and over, never angry, just tired, waiting. I tried everything the other spouses suggested, said a prayer, left the light on, put a small cross on the sink. Nothing stopped her. She didn't scare me anymore. She just looked sad, like she was still making rounds, still checking beds that weren't there. One night I spoke to her. I stood in front of the mirror at 22:30, looked right at the spot where she always appeared and said, "I'm trying. I don't know how to help them, but I'm listening." She appeared almost immediately. No fog this time, clear as day. She lowered her hand. For the first time she smiled, just a small, exhausted curve of the lips. Then she stepped backward, out of frame, and was gone. She never came back after that. We PCS'd in 2023. New house, new mirrors, no old glass, no crying at night. But sometimes, when the house is quiet and the kids are asleep, I catch myself checking reflections. Not out of fear, out of habit. I think she was never trying to scare anyone. She was just still doing her rounds, still waiting for someone to take over the watch, because some patients never stop calling. Laura Klein and her family now live off-post. She keeps a small framed photograph of Matilda Grayson, found in the Post Museum archives, on her dresser. Not as a reminder of fear, but of duty that doesn't end at discharge. What happens to the caregivers when there are no more patients to tend? How long do you keep making rounds when the hospital is long gone, but the wounded still call? Chapter 6. The Tower. Call our sixth account comes from Sergeant First Class Daniel "Danny" Davis, who served as an MP with the 15th Military Police Brigade at Fort Leavenworth from 2018 to 2020. During part of his tour, he was assigned to night patrols that included the perimeter and remnant structures of the old disciplinary barracks, sections that were never fully demolished after the new facility opened. This is his testimony, recorded in a one-on-one interview in late 2024. SFC Davis, first person, voice low and deliberate, carrying the weight of someone who still second-guesses picking up that phone. I pulled graveyard security on the old DB footprint, mostly vehicle patrols, foot checks on the perimeter fence, and a quick walkthrough of the abandoned guard towers and admin buildings they kept standing for historical designation. Tower 8 was the one we all avoided if we could. It's still there, half hidden behind chain link and no trespassing signs. Had 3 stories of weathered brick, narrow windows like gun slits, The old catwalk rusted but intact, and we had a small guard shack at the access point. Prefab metal, one desk, one chair, one landline phone that hadn't been connected since the early 2000s. The line was cut when they rerouted comms to the new control centre. Everyone knew it was dead. You could pick up the receiver and get nothing but faint, static hiss. This started in November 2019. First time was around 0410. I was in the shack doing the hourly log when the phone rang. Single ring. Sharp. Old rotary-style trill. I stared at it for 2 seconds. Nobody calls a disconnected line. Then lifted the receiver. Static. Then a voice. Male. Older. Military cadence, but tired, like he'd been saying the same thing for decades. Tower 8, post secure. Request relief. I didn't answer, just listened. The voice waited maybe 5 seconds, then repeated. Tower 8 secure. Relief overdue. Send replacement. Click. Line went dead. I wrote it off as a prank. Somebody patched a cell phone into the old wiring. Kids messing around. But the next night, 0410, again, same ring. I picked up faster this time. Tower 8 secure. Post exhausted. Request immediate relief. The voice was the same. Same flat affect. Same slight rasp, like someone who'd smoked too many cigarettes in the cold. I keyed my radio. Dispatch Davis at Old DB Gate. Got a call on the deadline. Male voice requesting relief for Tower 8. Dispatch came back quick. Negative, any activity on cameras. No personnel assigned to that sector. You good? Yeah. Checking it out. I grabbed my flashlight and walked the perimeter trail to Tower 8. The door at the base was padlocked, chain intact. No footprints in the frost, no sign of entry. I shined the light up the catwalk. Empty. Just wind moving the rusted railing. I went back to the shack. Sat down. Watched the clock tick to 0410 the next night. The phone rang again. Third time. I answered on the first ring. This is Sergeant Davis. Pause. Then the voice. Closer now, almost conversational. Tell them I'm sorry. Tell them Ellis is still on post. Relief never came. Click. I felt the hair on my arm stand up. I knew the name. Sergeant Ellis. 1950s. Tower guard during the last military executions at Leavenworth. Supervised the hangings. After the 11th one, some kid convicted of murder during a stateside AWOL incident, Ellis went up into Tower 8 alone on a night shift. Found him the next morning, service point 45 still in his hand, brain matter on the wall. No note. Just a man who couldn't carry what he'd done anymore. I didn't sleep the rest of that shift. Next morning I pulled every string I had, talked to the post historian, the old MPNCOs, even the chaplain. Everyone knew the story. Nobody had ever heard the phone ring before, but they all said the same thing. If he called you, he's asking for something. Don't ignore it. I went back one more night. 0410. Phone rang. I let it ring 3 times, then picked up. Nothing. Just breathing. Slow, laboured. Then one sentence. Almost a whisper. Post secure. All clear. The line went dead. Never rang again. I requested a patrol reassignment the next week. They moved me to the main gate. No more graveyard shifts near the old towers, but I kept the incident in my logbook. Dated, signed, no embellishment. 2 months later, IPCS to Fort Hood. Thought distance would close the book. It didn't. Sometimes, on midnights when the house is quiet, I'll hear a phone ring. Once, sharp old-fashioned trill, even though my cell is on silent and there's no landline in the bedroom. I don't answer it anymore. I just wait until it stops, because I already gave the only answer I had. I told him he's sorry, and he's still waiting for relief that never shows. Sergeant First Class Davis left active duty in 2023. He now works private security in Texas. He says he hasn't heard the phone ring in over a year, but he still keeps a small notebook by his bed. Blank pages, just in case someone needs to leave a message. What do you say when a dead man asks for relief? And how do you stand down a watch that ended 70 years ago, but never officially closed? Chapter 7. The Final Watch. Our final account is not from a single voice, but a convergence of recent testimonies collected between 2023 and 2025 from soldiers, corrections officers, instructors, and dependents still serving or living at Fort Leavenworth. These are fragments, short statements, late-night texts, anonymous forum posts, and recorded calls that together paint a picture of something ongoing, something that refuses to stand down. We begin with Staff Sergeant Alicia Monroe, Infantry Instructor 2024. I teach nightland navigation classes out by the old rifle range, around 2,300. When the students are spread out with compasses and red lights, I stay at the rally point counting heads. Last spring, I started seeing a figure standing at the tree line, full ACUS, patrol cap, hands behind back, parade rest, no rank visible, no name tape, just watching. Every time I raised my NVGs, he was gone. But when I lowered them, there he was again. Same spot, same posture. Never moved, never spoke, just watched until the last student came in. Then he turned, perfect about face, and walked into the trees. No sound, no footprints the next morning. From Corrections Officer Specialist Ryan Patel, SHU Detail, 2025. Lights out is 2200. After final count, I do a slow walk down the tier. One night in January, the call button in cell 14 lit up. Red light, soft buzz. No inmate assigned to 14. It's been empty since a plumbing retrofit in 2022. I checked the log. Negative contact. Still, protocol says respond. I walked over, keyed the intercom. 14, state your need. Static. Then a voice. Calm, almost polite. All present and accounted for, sir. Request permission to stand down. I froze. Looked through the slot. Empty bunk. Empty floor. But the call light stayed on until I hit reset. Next night, same time, same request, same empty cell. After the third night, I stopped answering. The light still comes on sometimes. I just walk past now. From dependent teenager Ethan Carter, 17, living on post, 2024. My bedroom window looks straight at the old disciplinary barracks wall. Around 0200, I'll hear someone marching. Single set of boots, crisp like drill. Stops right under my window. Then a voice. Low. At ease. Dismissed. No one's there. When I look. But the streetlight flickers 3 times, quick, like Morse. I looked it up. 3 quick flashes is SOS every time. I don't open the window anymore. From Captain Jonathan Reyes, Command, and General Staff College Student, 2025. Late night study in the old library annex. Around 0130, the overhead lights dimmed, brown out, and came back up. In the aisle between stacks, I saw a soldier in WWII khakis standing at attention, saluting the empty air. He held it for maybe 10 seconds, then lowered his hand, about-faced, and walked straight through the bookshelf. Gone. The book he passed through? Military justice during World War II was open to a page about courts-martial and executions. It hadn't been touched. From multiple anonymous texts submitted to a veteran paranormal group, 2024 to 2025. Stairwell light in building 407 keeps turning on by itself at 0330. When I go to shut it off, I smell cigarette smoke. Old Lucky Strikes. No one smokes in the barracks. Heard a full platoon counting cadence in the courtyard at 0400. Looked out, no one. But the cadence kept going until exactly 0415, then cut off mid-syllable. Mirror in the gym locker room fogs up even when no showers are running. Always the same word wiped into it. Relieved? ? Every Thursday. These are not isolated incidents. They overlap in time, in location, in tone. No single angry spirit, no malevolent force. Instead, a quiet, persistent presence. Soldiers who still stand watch, still call roll, still request relief, still salute at the changing of invisible guards. They do not attack. They do not threaten. They simply continue. As though the orders they once followed never included an end date. As though the barracks, the towers, the walls themselves remember every oath taken, every sentence carried out, every name answered for. Fort Leavenworth is still an active post. Soldiers still train here. Inmates still serve time here. Families still live here. And in the hours when the living sleep, something else keeps duty. A final watch that never quite ends. Perhaps these are not hauntings in the traditional sense. Perhaps they are echoes of unfinished business, guilt that never received absolution, duty that was never officially stood down, moral debts carried across decades, across wars, across generations, and every night in the barracks of Fort Leavenworth, a few good men and women still stand ready, still present, still accounted for. Whether we see them or not, whether we answer or not, they remain on post, waiting. Narrator, closing, quieter. That concludes the 7 accounts from the haunted barracks of Fort Leavenworth. 7 voices, 7 nights, 1 question that lingers long after the lights go out. When does the watch truly end?